So, as you can see, we've got rather a lot of space left in here. So maybe if we do enough convincing, Toyota might give us that big diesel beast after all.
Now that's volume at 14. Let's get some volume.
Alright, so setting off here in the 2023 Integra. So the first thing you notice about this, well, you have a really nice low C dual clutch transmission. It's an 8-speed wet dual clutch here in the Veloster N. And so I do notice that it does have an engagement point still. It's definitely, you know, pretty smooth, and I think it's a little bit smoother than the old dual clutches you get in like a normal Veloster Turbo or something. They still run a little bit of a dated dual clutch. This is this newer one. It's, you know, similar to the in-house, you know, Hyundai Kia dual clutch that they are using in other models, but it is of course beefed up here for the ends and has faster shifts and unique gear ratios, all that kind of stuff. But you know, I can still sense a little bit of an engagement point. It's also not the smoothest, and obviously in a vehicle like this you don't really care about smoothness a whole lot, but it just, you know, there's been a few times I've only driven this vehicle about a dozen miles or so far, but I've already wanted to just like do my own manual shifting in this a lot of the time, which you can do. The shifts are pretty quick even in normal mode, and I'll test that out some more here once we go up into the sportier modes. Yeah, so I mean, if you're in stop and go traffic a lot though, I think you will notice this dual clutch whenever you're inching up and stuff. It's, you know, it's not going to be as good as like a Porsche PDK or something like that, but I mean, this is, you know, for a $30,000 vehicle essentially, to have a dual clutch this good is actually very impressive. And so, yeah, we'll talk more about that though, since this is again the big new thing here for this as we're out driving a little bit sportier. But other things, you know, visibility is very good here in the Velosters, like always. You have a nice large windshield, pretty thin A-pillar, great view out of the sides, you know, especially this huge, you know, single door here on the driver's side. And view out of the back is also, you know, pretty good for a hatchback like this, although it's a little bit smaller than your average hatchback rear window, but still totally fine. And now, you know, I'm just driving in normal mode. And one thing is, you know, the ride is a tad bit firm, and they actually changed the spring rate and retuned the dampers as well here for the DCT version to make up for the fact that the weight distribution changed here with the DCT. So it's like 65% front weight distribution versus like 63.7. So it's a small change, but they did retune the suspension to accommodate that different weight balance. And so I'll kind of continue to test that and see if that really changed.
You know, I'll never get tired of the pop crackles that you get from the exhaust on the Veloster N. When I first drove this car 2 years ago, I was completely blown away. Hyundai's Performance Division N, I mean, they have the guy from BMW M Division working for them, and he knows how to build a car for enthusiasts. This car is a joy. Now, I love how it came with a 6-speed manual, of course, but everybody was curious, would Hyundai offer another transmission? And today I'm finally driving the Veloster N with the dual clutch. This is their new in-house designed 8-speed wet dual clutch transmission. And honestly, well, let's try the launch control first. That way you guys can see what it's like. To access launch control, you go into the screen here, go to performance options,
Let's get back to the music.
Set the launch RPM and hit activate here. Floor the brake and the accelerator. Now I will say that, as you can see, there is a ton of snow out there, and Hyundai delivered this car on its summer Pirelli P0 tires. It's like 38 degrees right now. So I'm not going to be able to get the best launch right now, but you know what? That was still very impressive considering how cold it is outside, and I've got summer tires on this thing. That noise. Hyundai basically says with the dual clutch you're going to get to 60 in 5.6 seconds. That is a conservative number. I saw Car and Driver just tested this vehicle in ideal conditions and they got 4.8 seconds to 60. 4.8 seconds to 60 for a hot little hatch like this.
Yeah, let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. Steering immediately gets heavier. All right, NGS, here we go. All right, I wanted to steer itself right off the road there for a second. Wow. All right, this thing whenever it upshifts. It like really punches you in your back whenever it upshifts. It's really impressive. Man, this thing's a little rocket. Oh man, it's even faster than the manual transmission version, but whoo, this thing gets up and moves. This thing, oh, I love the boogie. It's great. And that NGS is really cool to get that extra little overboost. So, the Veloster in here runs a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that has 275 horsepower and normally 260 pound-feet of torque, although that jumps to 278 pound-feet of torque, again, with that NGS button for 20 seconds for that overboost to give you maximum acceleration. And then you just hear that glorious exhaust. I love the way these things sound. I love the manual transmission version, and it sounds just as good here in the DCT. But yeah, so 0 to 60, car driver got 4.8 seconds. It was actually the fastest front-wheel drive vehicle they've ever tested. And previously, the manual transmission version would be about 5.2 seconds 0 to 60 the car driver got. We'll go ahead and do the manual shifting here, though, see how that does. There's a slight delay on the upshift. The 1-2 shift was like immediate, and then the second to third to fourth were a little bit slower. Downshifts are immediate. And that's one thing I've noticed with other versions of this DCT, you know, in the newest Kia Sorento and all those types of things. Downshifts are always very immediate and all those. Same deal here. You do hear a little bit of a whine from this transmission. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, I love that soundtrack. But we're coming up some corners here. Let's see how the DCT version handles. Oh, it's like it's on rails. You have this corner carving electronic limited slip differential, and that does a really good job of putting the car to the ground. I'm not really accelerating out of corners here. I'm just kind of coasting. Oh, I love the crackles and pops. Brakes feel fantastic too. But I can tell that it's really wanting to spin those front tires still, even with the LSD and stuff. It is fighting for grip there, and it's great. But yeah, I mean, so brakes feel great. You know, obviously these larger brakes on the N version, and they have a little bit of a dead travel. It doesn't really start doing much until you're about a third of the way into this pedal, and then it starts really gripping on you there. But there's very immediate once you start getting onto them, and very good. And man, this thing, it's just so low and so sharp and so light feeling. I mean, this thing is a scalpel. I love the Veloster. And so with the dual clutch version here, it did gain 96 pounds, and then I guess you saved, you know, almost 9 with these seats. So it would have been a little over 100 if you didn't swap the seats out. But you know, so even at 96 pounds heavier, you know, you're not going to really feel that because these are still so light. These weigh, even with the DCT, 3,186 pounds for the car driver got when they put it on their scales. So I mean, you're still looking at under 3,200 pounds, which is really rare in a vehicle these days, especially a vehicle that's practical at all. You know, and to have this much power, have the LSD, have, you know, all the stuff this has, to still be under 3,200 pounds is just so awesome. But yeah, and also in N mode, the steering is really, I love how heavy it gets. It's not like artificially heavy, it just feels really good. Anyway, I'm gonna pop out of the manual mode here, go back into auto mode. I'm gonna try doing a launch here if we can. See how that does. All right, so I activated the launch control. It lasts for 5 minutes. Then you just come to a stop, smash both pedals. Says it's ready. There we go. Oh, that works really well. It does a good job of, you know, limiting the traction. By the way, it was just set up for a 3,000 RPM launch. You can set that to a custom launch setting, as much as you want. Yeah, it works pretty well. I mean, you know, it's pretty quick. You know, we're still talking about, you know, roughly a 5 seconds 0 to 60. So I mean, it's nothing that's gonna blow your mind or anything. But again, for a front-wheel drive thing like this, I really love this, and it's awesome that they're just offering this because, you know, like the Honda Civic Type R, you know, they don't give you any kind of automatic option. You're stuck with the manual, which is great if you're someone like me who loves the manual. But if you're not, you know, that's like, it immediately disqualifies stuff like the Type R. And so now I'm glad that you don't have to disqualify the Veloster. This just opens up the appeal to way more people. And so another thing to comment on here, so you have the adaptive dampers here, and so they're up in their highest Sport Plus setting here in the N version, or the N mode. And you know, it's firm, but honestly this feels a little more forgiving than I remember it being in the manual transmission version. Yeah, it's not actually that bad. So I'm kind of surprised. That's the one thing with these wheels and tires is, you know, the suspension has to do all the work as far as, you know, making it seem, you know, relatively, you know, livable from a ride standpoint. And thankfully, it does do a really good job. I love also how immediate and direct the steering is. The steering is, it's so good. And every single thing about this car, I love to death. This thing is so good. Tighter corners here. See if this N-track sense thing can do anything that I noticed behind the wheel here. I know it's doing lots of stuff behind the scenes, but from the seat of the pants here, yeah, it feels just as good as it did with the manual mode. Oh, this thing, I mean, you could just demolish a back of it. I love even so that corner right there, it does provoke understeer sometimes in some cars. There's no such thing as understeer in the Veloster, and it just does such a good job with you know, ELSD and everything of just making this thing just be an absolute joy on back roads. Oh man. Yeah, this thing, it still is magical. It still is fantastic. And back when I reviewed the manual version, I said I would actually pick it over Honda Civic Type R. Since then, I have spent a week with a revised Civic Type R. They did improve the suspension.
It cost around $33,000. That is just insane. This is one of the cheapest ways you can get into the 5-second 0 to 60 club nowadays. It's cheaper than a Civic Type R still, which was the other vehicle that could do it. A Golf R can also do it, but it's much more expensive. This will eat Volkswagen GTIs all day long, GLIs as well, Civic SIs. And it sounds better than all of them as well. Oh, this car is just absolutely insane. Chirping into second gear on a dual clutch. You guys heard that. This car does come, of course, with their corner carving and differential. So it's an E limited slip differential. 19-inch wheels are standard. The performance package is now standard this year. So of course you do get the upgraded brakes. You get the additional 25 horsepower. And with the dual clutch now, even though this weighs a little bit more, oh, it is just such a joy. Much better than the joyless CVT option that you get in something like a WRX. I was not expecting it to do that into first. That is freaking awesome. Now the one thing that's cool about this car is it also comes with an NGS. That stands for N Grin Shift. Push this button right here by the checkered flag and it kind of goes into a Porsche Sport Response button. Push that button there, 20 seconds of overboost. Everything's in full-on attack mode. And it also increases the torque of the engine from 260 pound-feet up to 278 pound-feet for this 20 seconds. That is just insane that it gives you that. They took it from Porsche, but I love that it's in this little Veloster end. That is so cool. So anytime you're looking for a quick burst, I can have the car in comfort mode or normal mode. Just push that NGS button and everything goes into a maximum attack mode for 20 seconds. Although I will say the button is not very well labeled. Most people are going to look at that and say, what the hell does NGS mean? And you kind of can lose it pretty quick. What a noise! I love this noise. I love this powertrain. It feels like a 5-ish second car in these conditions. It is so fast. The steering is so quick and responsive. The suspension stays nice and flat. Now I will say that they had to retune the shocks in the dual clutch model because of the weight distribution. It's a little more nose heavy now in this particular combination. So I am noticing the ride quality in the dual clutch model is a smidge rougher in normal mode. In Sport Plus mode, however, I'm noticing the ride is actually more comfortable than the last manual transmission model I tested, which is weird. But the Veloster N's always had more of a harder ride quality than its competitors, and that's kind of what you expect when you buy a hatch like this. Just because we can, let's try the launch control one more time. Surprisingly, no torque steer there, just a little bit of wheel hop as the transmission and computers tried to settle it down and wrangle all that power in, but that is just so much fun to drive. I cannot believe how good this little car is. This is just insane. Oh, listen to that noise. Makes you forget that this is a front-wheel drive car. From the way it takes corners, the eagerness of it, the exhaust noise, the way it pulls. This dual clutch is the perfect partner for this 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. And you know what? It's coming in the Elantra N. A full-on N version of the Elantra is coming if you guys don't like the Veloster's funky 3-door body style. But I like the changes that Hyundai has made this year. These new seats are very comfortable. They hold you in place really nicely. They added some driver assistance tech like blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, automatic emergency braking, lane keep assist. Still can't get adaptive cruise in this car, which is weird. They should have just thrown it in on the dual clutch models, considering you have all the other features. I like the new 8-inch touchscreen infotainment system with Apple CarPlay. Of course, it's not wireless. And then I wish they also threw in heated seats and a heated wheel. You can get that in other markets, not in the US, sadly.
But I still stand by what I said back whenever I reviewed the manual Veloster N. This is my favorite hot hatch. I would take this definitely over a GTI. I'd take it over the Civic Type R. Even though the Civic Type R has more horsepower, this is actually faster now in a straight line thanks to the automatic here. And I think it's just a combination of having a fantastic soundtrack, which you do not get at all in the Civic Type R. You get very little sound in that car, sadly. And I mean, the Civic Type R is so good with, you know, its larger proportions, but the smaller size here in this makes it just that much more fun to chuck into a corner. I still think it's probably one of the best things you can get under, you know, $35,000 all day long. I mean, there are some fun rear-wheel drive options, you know, at that price point as well. But if you want something that's, you know, got the most power possible for your money and still have fantastic handling, fantastic practicality, and just a car that'll just put a smile on your face on every single corner, every single time you have this active exhaust on, you do a shift. I mean, it's always just so much fun here in the Veloster N. Alright, so now we're on the highway here in the Veloster N, and so I'm trying out some of these new safety features. So, blind spot monitoring, all that kind of stuff, everyone really knows about that stuff for the most part. But one interesting thing, so you don't have an adaptive cruise system, you do have regular cruise control, but it has the lane keeping assist, so it has like the steering for like an adaptive cruise system, but it doesn't have the actual speed changing capabilities of an adaptive cruise system. So it's kind of an interesting blend of some automation and some, just basic cruise control stuff here. So I have the steering assist on here currently, and it does do a pretty good job of staying within the lanes here. I can't judge it quite as harshly as the other systems since they don't actually call this highway driving assist like they do in the other Hyundai models. But it does do a pretty good job of, helping you steer a little bit. It will take some of the fatigue out of long highway drives if that's something you're looking for. It is nice that they have it now. It's standard, but it's not something that I would say is, a must-have feature or anything, but it's certainly nice for them to include. Even punching it mid-corner with the wheel really turned a lot, it still does such a good job of putting the power down. Man, this thing, it's done such a good job in this. But anyway, thanks to Hyundai, I'm going to have the Veloster in here for an entire week, so I'm going to drive around all over the place and have a very fun week, and then I'll come back and give you guys my final real-world fuel economy here, as well as my thoughts on the pricing and anything else that I noticed during my week of driving here. Alright, so I've been driving the Veloster N DCT for a week now, and oh man, this thing is fantastic. I did notice though that, all the little toys you get here, I didn't really find myself using them a whole lot. I mean, I did use the manual shifting a good bit of the time. I love the custom mode. That's something you get with the manual too. But like the NGS mode of, the overboost thing, I never found myself like floored and being like, man, I really wish I had like an extra 20 pound-feet of torque, because unfortunately that's a DCT only thing. But, it's a fun toy. I just don't know. I mean, maybe I'd have to, live with one of these for longer than a week to really see how much I would use that. But, just in a week-long drive here, I didn't find myself being like, oh man, I'm so glad I have that NGS mode. But it is, again, just a fun little thing that they added. Other things, though, is that this dual-clutch transmission is really good. So the manual shifts and stuff aren't quick enough that it, never annoyed me or anything. I still, depending on, sometimes it's a little bit quicker feeling than, like, Volkswagen's DSG and the GTI.